Hey, it's Austin. I'm going to show you how to do the BMW 335i Turbo Rebuild. This also includes the 135i and a couple other different BMW models. You have two different turbos, which the bearing housings must go with the compressor housings, so don't mix these up. Keep all this stuff with this turbo and all this stuff with that turbo. And then this V-band clamp comes off. That's a 10mm nut that holds that on. And then you need a special pair of pliers to take the C-clip off this. And then, yeah, that's pretty basic, but I don't want to get too far into the disassembly process, more of the assembly process. Okay, so we have both of these organized. We know that one compressor housing goes with one cartridge, one goes with the other. And the reason why is because they're actually made differently. See, the coolant ports are on different sides. Okay, so after we've cleaned everything, I've actually taped these up, blasted, painted them, and then I've cleaned them out, pressure washed them twice, and then also took the C-clips out and made sure it was extra clean. We could start putting these together. You also want to go ahead and clean the rebuild kits, so I've already done that. Even though these were bagged up, for some reason they were still dirty, so I went ahead and cleaned all that stuff. If you want to, you can use like white grease in this. That's preferred. I just like to use oil most of the time because it's a lot easier. And also, I'll go ahead and link to the rebuild kits so you know where to buy them. The main reason why I bought the rebuild kits that I bought was because if you're not careful, the rebuild kit may not contain the compressor housing O-ring, which can dry rot and crack. So another thing to keep in mind is this is actually an upgrade that I'm doing, so I had to have this clipped and balanced. So when it was done, it is also done with the rotating components. So make sure you keep all those parts with the assembly that it was balanced with. Make sure you install the seal on this after you've put in the thrust collar through. Otherwise, sometimes it won't go on. Make sure you're careful when you press this in, because if you're not, then you can bend the compressor seal easy. Sometimes you need to stretch this O-ring so it fits easier. Now you're going to take your pliers and put the C-clip in. And it's this, for the back, all you have to do is just put the bearing in, and then the shaft can go through. Usually for these I need a pick to press that on. I have a sharpened screwdriver I can use. Just be careful not to bend the piston ring seal also. Okay, so I found my heat shield. To make sure you oil this up good, especially under the seal. And then when you go to push it in, you just snap it. You want to like spin and then snap it in. That helps keep the seal centered. Now what we need to do is put the turbo in its balance. What you'll notice is that there's a mark on the shaft, which since I had this balanced by somebody else, then it will be lined up. So I line up that mark with the mark on here with the nut, which I kind of marked. So you don't have to mark the nut. It just, if you want to keep the or put it in the same torque spec without having to torque it, then you can mark the nut. Now when you have your turbo and you take it apart, and if you're just doing a factory rebuild, what you want to do is make sure that you mark where the nut is, the compressor wheel, and the shaft, because that will just give you the ability to put it together without having to rebalance the turbo. Because there's so many people that think you have to balance it every time you take it apart, but it's not true. Most stuff is actually rotor or component balance anyway. The smaller stuff is usually rotor balance. So for this, you got a 7mm on the intake side compressor nut, and the exhaust side is an 8mm. Usually what I do is place the compressor wheel 1/4 of the way in the opposite direction so that when I tighten it up, that it will match where the shaft is. Sometimes, however, the compressor wheel won't spin with the nut. In that case, you could just take the compressor wheel and align it to where the shaft is and just tighten the nut 1/4 turn. And also don't forget that this is left-hand thread. So instead of tightening it turning right, you're going to tightening it turning left. And then once you're happy with where it is and the tightness that you put on it, which like I said, it's 1/4 turn after you snug it up, then you can insert it inside the compressor housing. You want to go ahead and oil this ring up, or this compressor housing seal. It makes it go in the housing easier. Don't forget the C-clip. And make sure you put it on the open side because it makes it easy to get off and put on. And to install this, you're going to use a special pair of pliers, or if you want, you can use some needle nose. 90-degree needle nose work really well too. But make sure you push it in far enough. Sometimes I think you actually have to compress this to get this C-clip out of the way. And once it's snapped in, make sure that you go back and force it to make sure it goes in all the way, because this one's a lot harder to pry in. So here's the end result of the rebuild for the BMW 335i Turbo, which this is also an upgrade that I did, and then I had the turbines clipped. If you need these rebuild kits, I'll go ahead and link to the kit that I bought, and if you have any questions, ask me at turbolabamerica@gmail.com or in the comments below.